Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Hugh Capital Podcast with yours truly, Jerlisa JuJu Fontaine. I'm annoying, and as you guys always know, every single person that comes on this show, I always get hype, I always get excited, and I start bragging about them, and I can't stop. But I'm going to say it again. I just feel like I bring the best guests to my show. I think that they have really powerful stories. I think they're honestly all dope. And honestly, have I misled you yet? I don't think so. And in this case, I really haven't misled you because something that you all haven't seen from me yet is an episode with more than one person. Like, I've just never done that. And I've been itching to do that, but I always just felt like if I'm going to pursue that, it needs to be people who have a story that can resonate with anybody who's listening. And if there's any two people that I needed to kick off this duo type of interview structure with, it's the people I have today, and that is Charles and Shireen. Yeah, fake drum roll, right? So I'm really excited to do this. First things first, by the way, Shireen's from the Bronx, so you already know I have to give that a shout out because the Bronx girls be winning.
Here we go.
Come on. Well, I'll give Chicago a little shout out because our other guest, Charles, is from Chicago. I've been to Chicago. Chicago's a cool vibe. I can't say it's New York, but it's Chicago, and it's still cool, and it's still a vibe. And if you've been there, I'm sure you can agree. And if you haven't, give it a shot. I'm sure Charles will probably try to convince you to give it a shot anyway.
Give it a go.
There it is. So with that being said, I could brag about them, but in interest of time, I want them to talk about themselves. So I'll probably do ladies first. Shireen, like, who are you? Like, tell them about your career trajectory and where you're from.
Yeah, hi, I'm Shireen. I'm from the Bronx. I was raised, well, I won't say I was born there. I was born in Florida, but raised in the Bronx is really where I grew up, all I've known. Career trajectory, I went to high school in Harlem, and it was really a college preparatory school. I always knew, like, to me, that was my way out of the hood, like going to college, and I was going to figure it out. My first job was working at McDonald's, and I was like, you know what? I want something different. And I watched my mom hustle. And I was like, I don't want to have to hustle that hard. Like, I want to be able to do everything that I want to do. I don't want to hear the word no. And I don't want to ever have to not be able to do something because of money. And I think, like, that's a lot of people's stories. We watched our parents hustle, and we watched our parents, like, struggle and grind, and that's why we work so hard, to be able to help them, to be able to help ourselves, and to be able to help, like, the folks that come after us. So I would definitely say, like, that's one of my motivating factors. Charles and I met at work, but I knew that job was, like, my first job out of college. I was like, this ain't it either. I don't want to stay here either. So Charles can tell you, I was like, my two options at that point were, like, I need to either go to graduate school or get a new job in a different field. Whichever one hits first is the one I'm going to do. And I ended up going to graduate school. I went to Purdue. I got a master's in human resources management. And from there, that was what propelled my career trajectory into HR or people, and also into tech. I don't think I would have gotten the jobs I had today had I not had that network and been able to, like, utilize my network and what I learned in my graduate program, in, like, my career moving forward. So yeah, that's, like, my quick. And right now I work at a video game company, and I lead our diversity recruiting program efforts.
I love that. And before I swing it over to you, Charles, one clarification question. You mentioned about having an initial job out of college, not being fulfilled by that job, but what kind of role was it? I know that you went into, like, HR and talent acquisition, but what was it initially?
Yeah, it was so I would call it, like, it was like a catch-all role because
Okay.
it was a rotational program. So the goal of it was for us to come in entry level and rotate through 3 different areas within the business, figure out what we wanted to do. Yeah, but it was finance operations. But honestly, you could have been back office operations. So your experience could vastly differ. So the work I did was so different from the work that Charles did. But I didn't like any of that work, so I didn't want to stay.
And you knew it was time for a change. Fair game, fair game. And then Charles, so who are you?
Charles Beloved Kuykendoll. That's not my real middle name.
Not the Beloved. Oh gosh.
That's Charles Beloved is a whole vibe. Beloved is somebody who's dearly loved, and I stand by that. I really am somebody who is a truly love person, but I give love, man. And that goes back to my Midwestern Chicago roots.
Oh,
I just want to
gosh.
be very clear. West side, the best side in Chicago. Grew up on the west side of Chicago. Pre-gentrification or earlier. I don't even know if it ever gentrified. it's still pretty good. But yeah, man, just mom in the household with me and my brother, and then my dad also remarried, and my stepmom just really trying to make it, man. Like we were the first generation to like go to college and things. High school, I didn't really care too much about scholastic. Excelling scholastically, I'll say probably until about college. My whole focus was really just, it was Kanye era Chicago. I'm talking double pop collars. I'm talking polo Lacoste. I'm talking, you know what I'm saying? And, like pretty young things too. So I wasn't really concentrating on school too much, but I did always have like passions. I mean, my dad was like getting into ministry, so church was like really, really, really big for me. I directed the choir in high school and college. I was always in like student government. Like I really focused on so many things outside of school, than just did not focus in the classroom. But I was like kind of smart, just a little bit, not crazy smart, but a little bit of smart. I skipped a couple grades very early on, but it didn't manifest itself into good grades thereafter. So they accelerate you because they think you're so smart, and then you just don't meet the bar of potential. That was me. But I got my life together, and then I was ultimately, got into college through this program called Posse. Posse Foundation Scholar, full tuition scholarship. And the person who recommended me from my high school, she went to DePaul University, and she was like, if you get the scholarship, promise me you'll go to DePaul. I think that'll be like great. And she also knew I had horrible grades and everything. She stayed. The crazy thing is, that's interesting that I brought that up. The school had already submitted the list of the scholars to Posse.
Oh, I didn't know.
They could still, based on the size of your school, they give you X number of seats to submit. And the 10 had already been submitted. My teacher was like, Charles has to be on that list. She offered me to go on the list, and that was when she kind of made the threat, like, if you get the scholarship, you got to go to the ball.
Oh, come on, Faith.
And I was like, cool, whatever. I'll go to the middle of Indiana. So as I got to like the last round, I started to like kind of want to shift or backtrack on that commitment, because it was like University of Illinois, University of Wisconsin, some like big schools, big party schools, not this little small white school in Indiana. But I honor my commitment. I was like, she asked me to do it, so I went for DePaul, and it changed my life forever. So in college is where I first got exposed to people from New York. I had no idea of anybody from New York other than one of my moms. And she just had a crazy accent. And they're like, yo, like that was the only thing I knew about New York. But in college, Posse had a New York chapter and a Chicago chapter. So I just got immersed in New York culture and vibes and beef and broccoli shoes, whatever.
Oh God.
I was just like, and jerseys with patches on them. Wait, I was like, yo, these people.
I have to stop you for a second, because the way I keep finding laughter, and I had to laugh at that one. All right,
I'm not gonna lie. Y'all were a vibe, and that was an important piece for me to share in my story, because when I met the people in New York, I actually took to the New Yorkers more than the Chicagoans and the people on campus. And so they became my friends. They became my best friends, actually. They made me interested in finance. I didn't know about a Wall Street in Chicago. Yeah, we had banks, but like the way in which you think about finance and Wall Street, that's not anything that in Chicago really was prevalent. So they got me interested in finance, internships, all of that. They made me want to move to New York. So through all of that, I got internships, working in finance. I really felt like my career trajectory and my, financial standing could be great working in that field. And I graduated and moved to New York. And I was literally, the rest was history. So started in finance operations. Again, I'm not going to repeat, but hated it as well. But I was hungry. I was a go-getter, worked really, really hard at it. But I had no interest in going back to school. I did the college thing, and I did okay there. As you know, I did not care about school before. I did not care about school after. So as she was studying to get her master's and stuff, I was like, don't want to take an MBA, don't want to study. I was like, nah, it's just not happening. So I just knew I was going to have to, go through the ebbs and flows of career mobility to figure it out. And so I ended up going to this Big Four accounting firm because I knew I wanted to be a recruiter. I knew I wanted to be in HR. I just felt like my personality and that would match very well. And then I ended up getting let go from that place. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me in my career, part of it, because it kind of forced the shift. So I got an offer after about 6 months of being unemployed to work at a headhunter firm. I was just like, that was crazy because it was going to pay me less than like my internships. And I'm now 3-4 years of my career. I'm dating her. She's not very cheap to date. I want to be
for the podcast.
You got a couple dollars for
We did.
But she actually encouraged me, my brother encouraged me to take this low-paying job to just do something that I really cared about.
Yeah.
And I took it and I got into recruiting. And when I tell you the rest is history, the rest is freaking history. So from that job, I was able to go back into finance where I started, but be recruiting for finance. And because I was recruiting for finance, I was able to get into tech recruiting and move our family to the Bay Area to work for this small company you might have heard of called Facebook. And then from there, like when I tell you, it's just been blessing on blessing on blessing, leadership, management, global teams. Like it's just nuts right now. So right now I lead global talent brand, have reports all over different continents for this fintech company. But the second thing that started while I was in New York is RnB House Party. It's like my last little tidbit before we go. I'm looking at the clock. So RnB House Party was birthed because I actually was birthed in college. It was one of my fraternity parties. It was an actual house party that we played R&B at the Alpha House. Shout out 85. Let's just throw that up. So we threw it in college because all the frat parties were stroll parties, and it was just like boring. So we threw an R&B house party. It was crazy. So when we was in New York, that concept came back because it was trap everything. Everybody was Millie Rocky. All the girls just like, I'm like, that's what y'all come to the club to. This is what y'all want to do in the club.
You have to stop him.
Y'all like girls in heels. I said, no. We gotta relax. At least y'all know I'm not lying.
My friends are from Harlem, so they were doing that.
The part that got me though was the getting like in heels. Because why is he so on brand right now?
I said, we have to come up with something to get people dancing again, singing again. And so one of my other homies had a party series that he was doing, and I was just going, bringing good energy into those rooms. So like people would hit me up like, are you going? And this one right here, Miss Know-It-All, picked up on it, was like, yo, they're going to this party for you. I was like, oh, that's crazy. Like, they just want to know if I'm going. She was like, no, they're going for you. You're going out, spending up all the little money you had. I already told you that I took a low-paying job. She's like, you have to spend all the little money. You know how you let me not go. Let me not get you canceled on the internet again. Spend up all your little money. Like this could be a business opportunity for you. So she saw a gap in me that I didn't even notice or see in myself. And she pushed me to start. So when we started, the nuance was I'm a transplant. I'm not from New York. I made that very clear. I have my transplant friends. I had a few New York friends, but me and the other people who weren't from New York banded together. She never even wanted to hang out with my people because she got her high school friends, college friends, school friends. She was like, I'm good. So I was like, yo, if I do this, I need you to be my partner. And we need to do it together because then we could fill the room. I got my friend group. You have a completely separate friend group. We bring our friend groups together. We can fill the room 75 people. So that was like the first business strategy decision I ever made for RnB House Party. She said, great. So we called ourselves the Turn Up Couple. And we threw. We gotta bring that back.
I like that.
With my birthdays, we do the Turn Up Couple Presents.
I like that.
And so we did it and packed it out. It was an incredible launch. People ended up paying like $100 to get it because you had to. Not the door cover, but they were like, you got to do a minimum spend of $100 because it was so packed. The bar was able to like demand that from people. People were paying $100 to get in, and we only got $5 per head for each person that came. It was just like, but it was like, yo, we have something.
Yes.
And from there, just started to actually build the business. The second piece that was like a blind spot was understanding that by being popping in a city like New York and seemingly popping, they just knew I had this new thing that wasn't finance related. People in Chicago was like, what is that? And wow, Charles, you really getting after it. And it was like, ding, 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 ding.
Bring it to Chicago.
Bring that back home.
Absolutely.
When I did it in Chicago, it went nuts. And I said, okay, touring is the key. Because you're not oversaturating any markets. You are building a global fan base. And from there, we really like locked in, established partnerships and be able to
Took it to Gravity,
Yeah.
Afro Tech.
Come on now. You
Corporate
use
sponsors. I think I saw
I
Ciroc,
just launched.
like liquor
Yeah.
brand. The big sponsors, the big partnerships.
Yeah. So it has turned into a life of its own. So what started as like a side hustle, a few extra dollars for us to pay for this crazy wedding we wanted, has like turned into a whole business, you know, that I'm CEO of, and I operate in that leadership mentality now. So that's a little bit about me.
A little. Only a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I ain't go to the kids. I ain't go to all the boss talk. I'm waiting. I'm getting, you got 20.
Don't worry. There's gonna be more bragging opportunities. Listen, I want you to brag on this, by the way. I need you guys to brag. But first things first, before I go into my next question, a couple of things I want to highlight for people who are listening is one, I think what was very cool and intentional about both Shireen and Charles walking us through their journey is understanding like why you're pursuing the things that you're pursuing, right? Like they're talking about their family dynamic, watching their moms, pops, stepdad, etc., going through what they went through to be able to provide for their family and understanding, okay, listen, if I've watched my family struggle in a certain way, do I want to continuously see my family struggle this way? Do I even want to struggle the same way? Or should my struggle look a little bit different? And maybe it's a more fruitful struggle, not one that you really don't want to have to endure. And when I say a fruitful struggle, I feel like when I'm looking at people like Shireen and Charles, I'm looking at how busy their lifestyle is. It's taxing. They're always on the move. They're always on flights. They're going back and forth by coastal, right? And that is a struggle. Someone might not call it a struggle, but it's a struggle. But the good thing is it's a fruitful one because it's something that is necessary to power what they're passionate about. And I feel like that was very important to highlight. Secondary to that is making sure you quickly understand what you do and what you don't like. Right? They were able to kind of walk you all through their career journey and highlighting how basically one of their first jobs, if not the first job, was not something that they enjoyed. And realizing, okay, listen, do I just keep babysitting this role that I don't like? Or do I immediately leave, think about what my actual skill sets are and things that I do like, and transition into something that I actually enjoy? And in their case, they did it right because after changing from finance operations and etc., they've been in talent acquisition, HR ever since. So they found their niche. And honestly, just to kind of compliment you guys, I feel like you're in the right niche because when I think about talent acquisition and similarly in marketing, I think about people who are very personable, people who are problem solvers, people who are actively thinking about ways to make someone's experience a great one, no matter what the process is. And I feel like you two are like great people to do that. And I've seen that on the business side. So hearing you all talk about your career journey, I can see it being applicable there as well. And before I transition a little bit more into the love and business side, a quick tip I want either one of you to give, it doesn't have to be both, is as two people who work in talent acquisition right now, this year, we've seen a lot of layoffs. You know, Charles is shaking his head. He knows what I'm going to ask. I want to know, like, what is some advice that you have for someone who may have gotten laid off and they're feeling discouraged about pursuing their next opportunity?
Yeah. I think we both dealt with that. Obviously not in this time, but at different seasons in our life, getting a lot of no's. And it's so discouraging. It can feel so personal. It can feel like it's me and it's no one else.
Yes.
But I just want everyone to understand it's not you. The market is nuts right now. There's so many more folks on the market than there are jobs, but you only need one person to say yes to you. So keep applying. It's a job, right? Like being unemployed and trying to find a job is a job within itself. Yes, you're not getting paid for it, but treat it like a job. Get up every day, make those connections, ask people for informational interviews, even if it might not lead to a role. You never know what seed you plant that might bear fruit. So continue to plant those seeds. It's hard. I'm not saying it's not hard. I'm not saying some days you're going to wake up and you're going to be like, I do not want to do this. Interview fatigue is a real thing. Take a break, whatever that break may look like for you, whether you take a week off, a day off, but take it off. If you want to take that day to feel sorry for yourself, take it. Give yourself a timeline. I'm going to feel sorry for today, but tomorrow I'm going to put back on my interview jacket and I'm going to go back out there and interview. And fake it till you make it. Like, I know that this season can, especially when you're thinking about paying bills, if you got to take care of your family, it just seems like it's never ending. But I am here to give you a word that it will end. Rain, it does not rain every day. It cannot rain forever. The sun will come back out. So focus on the positive, focus on that end goal. Say your prayers, keep planting your seeds, and I promise you, your fruit will come to bear.
You see
I
why?
felt like I was
You see why? You see why?
that energy.
See why I snatched up? So you ain't going nowhere, co-worker.
Because that is the level of praise and high spirit that she puts into you as well. And I love that. I felt like I was in church getting the word of the Lord just now. Like, unfortunately, I have a job right now, but I'm not going to lie. If I didn't, I'm on that computer like, yo, let me get to it. That was a great answer, Shireen. Thank you so much for that. And I have a quick game for like 2 minutes that I want to play with you all. But before I get there, as two people who are working in talent acquisition, once again, you two are Black individuals, one of Caribbean descent, one of Black American descent, and we do represent a portion of a diverse population of candidates in the workforce. And I'm curious as to, are you, as two people who are working in tech, are you seeing improvements in DE&I, or do you feel like there's so much more work to be done? And what does that look like?
I would say it's both, right?
Mhm.
We've seen
Okay.
improvements, but there's
Still work to do.
substantial work to still be done. And if you look at the market, disproportionately, the number of people who were impacted in the recent last 6 months are Black and brown people.
Yep.
And that comes, again, you could go systemic if you want, but I'm like, the roles that we're in are not revenue driving roles. Like,
Yes.
my role is at risk. I'm in recruiting, which is a call center. It is not directly impacting the finance of the business, which is an engineer role, which is in finance, investment banker role. But also, we didn't know about those roles. Our dads were not in these seats already and already knowing what the heck a software engineer was. I didn't know about software engineer until probably in my 20s, which is insane, right? And we're avid end users of products. As soon as I got to college and I was able to get a .edu email address, I was the first person on Facebook. I was the first person trying to have my profile pic for the joints. I'm sorry. Let me chill. But you know what I'm saying? But our minds weren't built to, and we didn't have the muscle to say, how does this thing work? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just a company I could work for. So I'm like, now we're at a point now where we're second generation. We're first generation got it together, and our kids are second generation got it together. So my son, we saw something about a coding boot camp. He's 6 years old. He's going to know what that coding is at 7, right? And it's just like, now that's how we make the macro change. But these companies, they got way, way, way more work to do, because while they should have micro programs in place to increase representation, to increase belonging, retention, hiring, and acceleration of careers of people from our backgrounds, they also need the macro programs, need to be in these colleges, need to be in these high schools even, to be able to facilitate that longer term funnel. I'm sorry, you can get me going. You can put,
all good. It's all good. No,
I'll get to talk like this too often. It's a brain in here somewhere. But
you're perfectly fine. The reason why I like what you were doing is, well, first things first, I asked you about like, how did you all feel about the trends in DEI in tech, right? And I think the great thing about your responses, which I didn't ask, it was going to be a follow-up question, but it's a good thing that you do get excited, because I wanted to get a gist from you all in terms of, like, what do you look forward to when it comes to diversity in this space? And you're mentioning about this next generation of, you know, kids or the youth who are engaging in technology, but most importantly, building it, learning to be more resourceful and capable of designing and developing products. They're no longer just users of tools, they're also engagers and builders of tools. And that's why it was okay for you to go on your rant. And once again, for Shireen to give us the great spirit of the Lord as we stay confident in this job market. That was great. My 2-minute game with you all before we go into love and business is myth or fact about like this job market and just the experience on like, you know, getting a job. Once again, I have to keep reminding everybody listening, like, these two are a power couple in my mind. And as you all have listened, I know you feel the same way, but they're both in similar career fields. Like, they're doing talent acquisition. So myth or truth, are you ready?
Okay.
Well, I feel like Noire on Drink Champs right now. I got to chill out. I love me some Noire and Drink Champs. All right. Anyway, so myth or truth, does someone need to apply to 500 jobs in order to have a chance of getting a job?
Myth.
Okay. Is diversity?
I need this to go too.
Oh, God. I was going to alternate, but go for it.
No, I want us to, and I want to hear why. So it's going to be a 5-minute game. I'm not taking over the podcast, JuJu, because I want to hear the context. Mine also is myth. Why did you say myth?
Because Charles, how we've gotten jobs have been very different. Charles, a lot of his jobs have been through network connections or folks reaching out to him when he was a passive candidate. So a recruiter hitting him up and saying, hey, you look good for this job. a lot of the jobs I have gotten are through actually applying to a job. Yeah, like just going on the portal cold and like submitting my resume. So I think it's both. I don't think you need to apply to 5,000 jobs. I do think 500 jobs. I think a part of it is also networking and talking to people, and like it really is who you know. Like, so I don't think it's all about just like apply. You gotta like get in front of people and like show that you're human and not just a piece of paper.
So that was great. Good gem. I said myth because I don't think it's 500. I think it's 5 trillion. I don't think you should ever stop applying for roles. I don't care as happy as you are at your company. You should always keep your eye out the market because, again, there's a wage gap that exists when you stay in the same role. So I'm saying you always should be applying. There should never be a stop to applying, whether you have a job, do not have a job. And if you are searching for a job, you need to cast a super wide net across industries. You see, I worked in finance. I worked in tech. I worked in freaking agency recruiting. I worked at Big Four. If you think about like working in a startup versus working at a large big tech company, like there are so many roles and pathways out here. Like people self-limit themselves. Oh, this is not this salary. It's not this. It's not like looking for ways to weed themselves out. You need to be looking for ways to weed yourself in. And so if it's like, hey, the big company's not giving you a look for what it is that you want to do, look at the small company, because the small company's probably not getting 1,000 applicants for this role every single day. They might get 4 or 5, and they might see you and your personality matters, or the way your gravitas matters, or et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just like, apply.
I like that.
And also, don't talk yourself out of applying. I hear so many people, they're like, I don't quite fit. If there's 2 bullets on there and you can do them, apply. You're overqualified probably.
I second that. All the way. Literally, absolutely agree with Shireen. I feel like I'm somebody where when I was transitioning from project management into product management, yes, indeed. You'll see 5 bullets and say, oh, damn, I've only done like 3 out of the 5. Should I pursue this? Yeah, why not? Because somebody might have none of those bullets and still apply anyway. So why shouldn't I do that? So highly second that. My last myth or truth to you guys is diversity, equity, inclusion is only about getting Black and brown people into corporate spaces.
Myth
as well.
Why?
You go first.
So DEI is just, first of all, I have a global lens on things. So I lead a global team respectfully. So Black and brown is really only applicable to US. So that is a different lens on that in different regions. And secondarily, as you think about like equity, you know, I think about women, you know, I think about women heavily when it comes to like equity and being able to be paid what their fair wage is. And if you just think about like the role, it's not diversity in ethnicity and skin color, it's diversity of thought. Y'all are from New York, which means y'all are crazy. I'm from Chicago, which means I have a good solid upbringing and
Wait, what?
So that what I'm getting at, despite my jokes, is a diversity of thought even amongst the same demographic of people. So it is those different perspectives that help guide your product, that help guide your decision making. So, you see, y'all put the work hat on. People, I don't get to show this on the internet. I like to be crazy.
I need them to see this side too. I want them to see that they have to.
And so when you think about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, that's the type of thing that it makes up. Yes, it should benefit Black and brown people disproportionately. It's called reparations to some degree. But the more important thing is like the inclusion, the equity, and also like the diversity of thought that goes into that. Go ahead.
And I think people kind of limit D&I to like hiring, and it's not just a hiring thing; it's also a retention thing. So yes, now you've gotten that person. How are you going to treat them? What is their succession plan? Are they a high achiever? If they are a high achiever, what does their growth path look like? Because you can, like Charles talks about the wage gap. You can hire those folks, but then if they are getting promoted at a slower rate than their, white peers, then that's also an issue. So I also think when you talk about D&I, you need to look at it holistically. It is the attraction and it's the attraction of, people who come from an underrepresented group, but it's also the retention of those people as well. Because if you're hiring them, but they're leaving after a year, 2 years, then there's an internal issue going on where people feel like they can't grow or they might not feel welcome. So you also need to look at like, is your culture one that makes people want to stay there, where people feel like they can be themselves, and they can show up to work and be their whole self. So I think it's a 2-pronged thing, and people sometimes forget about that second prong and focus really on the, on the attraction and the talent acquisition piece.
Ding, 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 ding. So, Shireen, you actually hit it on the nail in terms of what I actually wanted to end with in terms of that question for Myth and Truth is the concept of retention through culture, right? So, to your point, everybody needs to see individual growth in their careers. But if you are in a space where maybe you like your role, maybe you like your job, maybe you like the task that you have to commit to, but if you don't feel comfortable around the people that you have to collaborate with on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, it's going to be hard for you to feel that same compassion for your job in longevity. And I feel like culture is really a big piece of what DEI represents. It's a matter of making sure that everybody you are trying to advocate for and create a fruitful career experience for all feel like they are in a cohesive space to grow together and individually. So you guys body that. Now we're going to transition to love and business as we get towards the end of this interview. I need a quick bragging session. And Shireen, I'm going to come to you on the podcast. Charles, I'm going to come to you on R&B Party. I will start with Charles because Shireen just ended off. Charles, brag for me a little bit. Walk me through a bunch of different companies that you've had the opportunity to partner with for R&B House Party.
Let's see. Beats by Dre.
Revolt.
Twitter. Revolt was actually my first partner ever.
It was your first one.
Partner with Amazon last year. AWS. Partner with almost every spirits brand you could think of. Partnered with AT&T.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when this is coming out, but partnering with Essence Fest this year. I could just keep going. Afrotech, every conference. I mean, it's just like stacking up this well. As did a partnership out in Ghana with Afrofuture.
African
the conference. I'm doing something this in 2024 called the Afro Cruise with Rock the Bells. Yeah, it's nonstop. So I appreciate. I'm trying to keep that low. If you pay attention.
No, first of all, it's not low anymore. It's on this podcast, and this video will be going out. So guess what, everybody? You heard it here, and maybe first. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you heard it first.
Listen, you already know what time it is.
July 31st is July 1st through the 4th, man. That's Fest coming real soon.
My birthday July 2nd, by the way. Just putting that
out there. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Love that answer. I want you to brag about that. Shireen, now I'm coming to you. Actually, two things. I'm actually going to start with brag about the kind of places or brands that you two as a couple has brought you to. So for example, like Black Love, like any other like entity that you guys experience like speaking with.
Well, I think
the BET thing.
Oh, this was like years ago. We partnered with BET and they highlighted our love story. This was like our first year of marriage. Yeah. So that was like us newly married. It's somewhere in the internet verse if you can ever find it. Honestly, if you Google us, I think the story still comes up. And then Black Love, I think for us, really kind of why we even launched the podcast was less like to talk about like the branding and to like, I feel like we do so much of that with RnB House Party. I think we just wanted to continue to share our story. And, I told everyone, I'm like, apply for the jobs, even when you don't feel qualified. I didn't feel qualified. Like, I didn't feel qualified to have a podcast. I'm like, why does anyone care? Why does anyone want to hear from me? So I think for me, it was like really stepping into the fact that you are qualified. Yes, there are relationship podcasts out there, but they're different, right? Like just because there's a relationship podcast doesn't mean that resonates with everyone. Doesn't mean that couple is for everyone. So why not share our story to see who resonates with us and see what we can share that might be a gem to someone else. And those people's love story is different. So they might not have had the struggles that we had, and we don't have the struggles that they have. So for me, it was like, we have something to share. And, Charles said, beloved means you are well loved. And I think we have so much love within one another. I really want to kind of share our love with the world and, share what our love has taught us with the world, and share that love is not just like Instagram pictures. Like you make it look so easy on the internet. Like you might be struggling in your own relationship and you look at other couples and you're jealous of like what the man is doing for the woman or what the woman is doing for the man. But I'm a true believer in the grass is greener where you water it. Yes. So you need to water your grass. And instead of focusing on all the negatives of your partner, focusing on like why that negative could be a positive. Like when I feel like early in our relationship, I used to be annoyed with him playing video games. Like that
Well, I
was
have a story on that.
he loves video games. He's so locked in. He's in a league.
Don't roll your eyes when you say leave.
I didn't, bro.
Oh my
Don't
God,
roll your
no,
eyes when you say leave.
Shireen, I made a face too. I'm with you. I'm
They are
sorry.
recording. My eyes never roll.
Don't roll your eyes when you say leave. Little league. Don't say little.
He is in a big league. And instead of being annoyed that, like, you know, because he's playing his video game that we weren't spending time together, I was like, you know what, let's spin it. One, he's at home, right? His hobby doesn't cost us a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's, you know, a couple bucks for him to buy the new game. Two, he's like here. I think now as we have a child, like CJ loves to play the game with him. So that's their bonding moment. And then it gives me my own time to like watch my trash television. So I'm like, what is my positive spin on this? Yes, I could be annoyed that like he's taken 2 hours to play the game, but I could also look at like he's home, he's with us, he's in our presence, and the minute he's done, we're all back together. And obviously that comes with its own caveats, but really just trying to focus on like the positive in your partner, because everyone has everything people do could be negative.
I want to chime in on that one, Shireen. First things first, just as a listener, I've heard the first 2.5 episodes.
Mhm.
And I think that the great thing about your content for the two of you is the storytelling. It's the relatability, like I had mentioned before. It's like, I don't want to say this, but I'm going to say it and I'm going to regret it afterwards. But Charles does give off somewhat of New York energy, and it works with Shireen's New York energy. I feel like it also makes it relatable because I feel like I'm listening to two New Yorkers-ish relationship. I must give that a shout. I didn't want to say it. I know he's gonna.
I mean, I lived there for 8 years, and so I sound like
boy, I knew it was coming, but I had to highlight that. I think it's very relatable. The storytelling is powerful. And something else I think is really cool about what you mentioned is just kind of being able to like constantly remind people that everything is kind of give and take, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like you're not gonna like every single thing about a person or everything that they do, but you're gonna find a reason or find a way to believe it's okay and it's fine. And I really appreciate that about you guys. And the reason why I appreciate that is I think that that also is very important for business because you all have your day-to-day, your 9-to-5 jobs, your day-to-day job. You have 2 kids now, and you have this business. So it's one quick question, and maybe just one person choose to answer this one. Like, how do you feel about balancing it all? Like, how are you guys doing these 3 things? Parenthood, having a job, and business.
Well, I'll go real quick. I feel like balance is a lie. Like I feel like there's gonna be days where it's up, it's down. Like I just don't. When people are like, I'm able to balance. We also have help. Like I understand my privilege in that like our moms are available to help us when we need to. We do not do it alone, and I will never sit here and pretend like we do it alone. We have a village that I'm so thankful for. I think especially with this child, we have more of a village than we had with CJ when he was born. We did a lot of it alone. And I talk about it a lot on the podcast. It was it's hard. And I want to acknowledge that, you know, having a business, working full time, having children, all of it is hard. So I feel like people get so stuck on like the balance. I'm like, sometimes it's going to be imbalance and that's okay. There are times where I'm doing more. There's times when Charles is doing more. It's not always going to be 50-50. It's not always going to be balanced. I think making sure that at some point there is balance. It can't be all one person doing more. But I do think there are times when I'm more locked in. It's times when he's more locked in, and we kind of create that balance for one another. But I feel like people get so stuck on the word balance. Sometimes it don't exist. Like, and that's okay.
Actually, Charles, maybe you can answer this one also because it kind of complements what Shireen just mentioned about like allocating responsibilities, right? Like balance is a myth, to your point, Shireen, and each person can't do it all, and you two have to kind of bounce off of each other's like flaws and strengths. Charles, how do you feel about the way you two kind of allocate responsibilities across the board?
Yeah, no, it's important to understand those core roles, but also flex. Like she's like our house manager. I don't think I've ever paid a mortgage payment. I don't even know how to log in, right? So again, she's happy to do those things because she knows like she ain't never logged into Eventbrite online. She has logged into Eventbrite, but like
definitely
all of the business things that I have to do for RnB, like she gives me the space to do. I'm on the road weekly, you know, I'm probably on like we're in a hotel room. This is not my house decor. I want to be very clear. But like I'm on a roll like 12 weeks straight, every weekend for 12 weeks. But also mixed in is like a couple things for our kids. It's like, hey, That's the balance in it. Okay, we're doing 3-party things, but that fourth one, we're doing some family something. You know what I mean? And so again, but also when it comes to help, like personal for us to be able to like have help for our kids, I had to pay for both my mom, my dad and my stepmom to fly from Chicago to LA for 24 hours.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's the cost. But you do that. And when my business scaled to the point where I literally could not do it all by myself, I had to hire a team. I had to hire a business partner. I had to outsource help. And then when I started all happening, I started getting disorganized. I had to get an accountant. I had to have somebody help me understand like the management of that. I had to hire a payroll system. So it's just like, you got to understand, as you are scaling, whether that is your family scaling, whether that is your business scaling, whether that is your freaking podcast scaling. Lord knows that's so much work. And so shouts out to you, because podcasting is not easy. Podcasting is not easy. Everybody make it look easy. It's not easy. I just want to let the people out there know.
Y'all said it.
JuJu, give off flowers. But like, as that scales, like get the team in place. You have to be comfortable like releasing some of that, but setting up real solid infrastructure.
Great answer. So first things first, thank you so much for that very thorough answer from the both of you. I feel like this was one of my best interviews. I really enjoyed this one. I think it's really cool that I had the chance to like actually interview a married couple. Never had the chance to do that. A couple of things I want to highlight before I ask my wrap-up question, and so that we can get them out of here and back on the road. And what they need to do is, one, like I had mentioned before, understanding their career trajectory and everything that they had to do to get there. 2, understanding that, okay, if you are passionate about something outside of work, do not hesitate to try and pursue it. Go for it. You'll be very surprised at the outcome. Sometimes your very first event or very first service is not that great, but the second one is extravagant. Or sometimes you hit it right away and it just works. But whatever it is, do not give up on that thing, because Charles and Shireen are like a perfect example of how years of hard work amount to a very extravagant experience when it comes to business, because they're killing it and they're starting new endeavors over time. RnB House Party, the podcast, and I'm pretty sure in like 3 years is going to be something else, and I can't wait to indulge in it.
Conference next year.
What is it?
A conference.
Oh, see? And there it goes. And there it goes. So,
since you put it out there.
House Party.
Since you put it out there, we're not done.
It just, because they can do that and they're so compassionate, and they're going to find a way to work with each other to balance it all out and bring life to it. So I had to highlight those key things, because I feel like I just don't want anybody leaving this interview without acknowledging that. And in order for me to let them go, my final question to you all is, what does the future of love and business look like? And I need each of you to answer it.
Yeah, I think it's leading with love. I think it's understanding at the baseline of this, like, we love one another, and if all of the businesses fall apart, we still are together. And I think that is like the most important piece of it, right? Like, you can rebuild the businesses. Money gets lost, but money always comes back. So I just want us to focus on us. Like, I would never want us to be so focused on the business piece that the relationship falls apart. So I think for us, it's really like leading with love, leading with understanding that what our why is, our family, and really letting that be our motivation and our driver.
That was so great.
I mean, I don't even.
I'm sorry. Good luck.
Get to see her. We don't get to see. I can't. I was supposed to say after that.
Good luck.
That's it. That's the word, man.
I think Shireen, you might be the PK, not Charles. It's giving. Yeah, that's what it's giving. By the way, I have a horror story about PKs, by the way, but
that's for another episode.
Anywho, Charles, do you want to chime in, or you feel like that was the answer?
I mean, my PK answer is this song by Sweet Holy Spirit, this church I grew up in. The chorus, or the bridge, I forgot what part, but they say that if I lost everything and still had Jesus, I have enough to start all over again. I want to add, if I lost everything and still had Jesus and Shireen, I got enough to start all over. And I lost it all, so I have no ego in it. You know what I mean? I had money at 20 and working in finance. Then I ended up having no money at all. And
Shireen at the dinner table with the $600. Yeah. Listen, make sure y'all watch Black Love. Just listen.
Yeah, you gotta see. But I mean, I literally have lost everything, and she's been my ride or die. So we just gonna keep growing and keep going.
I love that. Thank you two so much for being on this episode. Honestly, like I said before, this was really great. I feel very fulfilled. They heard my voice in the beginning. I was mad hype. I had to calm down. And I feel the same way. I'm trying to chill out because they got to go. But everybody, thank you all so much for listening. I hope you all learned a lot from this episode. Learned about talent acquisition, career trajectory, business, love, and more. And whatever else you need to know about these two, Black Love Documentary, and don't forget their podcast for better or best.
Our best pod.
Better or best pod.
See, I got that. I got that. Boom. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you all for the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Bye.